Melissa Diavero, she was actually born and bred in Vredendal. So Melissa is a normal West Coast girl that had a passion, a dream, a guitar, and a song. Melissa was raised by the sea and driven by the wind, a free-spirited woman that has a passion for people. Being homeless at one stage, she had a passion to change and to change the world. With the death of her son, her life has changed. For most people, it would be the beginning of the end, but for her, it was the birth of a new season. The topic of this morning's talk, Rising from the Ashes, is her life story. So sit back and be inspired by this amazing woman. Thank you.
My name is Melissa, and I go by the name Weskus Duchess. I gave myself that name. And thank you, Susan and Mr. Nadu for the invite, you guys that organize Immaculate Organization. And the first thing I want to tell you this morning, it's okay not to be okay. It's really okay not to be okay. It's okay if your marriage failed. It's okay if your child started rebelling. It's okay if you gained weight. That's why they make these type of clothes, for us to cover it up. This morning I was standing in front of the mirror right before I put it up, and I thought, wow, I had my sister. I must spit her out. But anyway, I'm not very fond of exercise. I don't even run from the police. But my story starts, and before I tell my story, I'm a singer. I just want to tell you, eventually my dream came true of becoming a singer. My music video was launched on YouTube the day before yesterday. Stuff is happening. I'm going to TV, mommy. The child that they thought was not going to make it. My typing teacher told me I was going to work in a fish and chip shop. I guess that would have been fine. There's nothing wrong working with a fish and chip shop, except the fact that I'm going to eat all the profit. But there was bigger things for me in store. So many times stuff happened in your life, and people speak things into your life and say to you, you know what, you're going to be nothing. And that is when you do that, rise from the ashes. Because remember this theme, ashes happens when something burns. And then there's a flickering of a light. And then the wind comes and it blows and it starts a fire. And when the fire starts, nothing can stop you. We women, men, stand in front of the mirror and I don't feel beautiful. You know what? Where's the standard? It's because you look at the Cosmopolitan. Nobody's that thin. Nobody spends so much. Some people sleep on a treadmill. No, it's not healthy. You'll die. So we've got a standard in the world and we have to meet it. But who made the rule? You have to. They always in Afrikaans say, hulle sê. Who are they? I want to meet them with a baseball bat because they did a lot of damage. I'll tell you my life story. You just need to keep me for time, because if I start talking, then it begin wyd raak. So just to let you, I always got this thing, I have to prove that I can sing. Verstaan jy? So what I've got here, Susan asked me if I ate on my laptop this morning. I don't know why she would ask me this, but there is something happened with my laptop. But thank you for the university for sponsoring me a new one. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm going to sing you a song, and I want you to just get into the vibe, and then I'm going to tell my story. It's not a song that means anything to me in particularly. I just would like to set the atmosphere. Is that okay with you? All right. Mr. Sandman, I'm going to hit the play button here. And unfortunately, it seems that we are not connected to the internet anymore. Okay, let me just do this. Just waiting for the internet. But it's very important in your life to see yourself for what you're going to be, not for what you are. It's very important that people respect you for what you're going to be and not for who you are. It doesn't define what you drive, where you stay, what you wear. That doesn't define who you are at all. The biggest challenge in life is people's judgment. That people make you feel bad about yourself. And that happened in my life from I was a very, very young girl. But hier gaan die preek nou weer. I just first have to sing this song. Because when I start, I can't. The people in the school, the juffrou always send papers to work. This child talks too much. Like, must I communicate with flashcards then? So detention, I had a season ticket. So I'm going to open with Bon Jovi, A Whole Lot of Leaving. It's pretty cold in late September. The autumn wind is creeping in. The summer sun is packed up long gone. There's a whole lot of leaving going on. Yeah! I bet it's warm in California. I bet it's time to hit the road. I just might call a band of gypsies and go searching for a pot of gold. Seems like lately there's a whole lot leaving going on. I close my eyes and picture your hand in mine. Yeah, I walk the line, you never hear me say goodbye. Where I can reason to be strong. Seems like lately there's a whole lot leaving going on. Close the window, close the curtains. You ain't the only one here hurting. No one's right and no one's wrong. Lately there's a whole lot of leaving going on. I close my eyes and picture your hand in mine. Yeah, I'll hear your voice. It takes me back to that time where I can find a reason to be strong. Seems like lately there's a whole lot leaving going on. Oh, it's Lekker in Bloemfontein. I love it here. People think that I'm too much sometimes, but I'm exactly what you need this morning. I can tell you I'm exactly what you need this morning. You used to live to say I love you. Now you got one foot in the door. That's when you turn around and ask me, do we got it anymore? I close my eyes and picture your hand in mine. Yeah, I still hear your voice. It takes me back to that time when I need a reason to be strong. I close my eyes and picture your hand in mine. Yeah, I'll walk the line. I never hear you say goodbye. So pretty babies, please be strong. Seems like lately there's a whole lot leaving going on. Lekker. There we go. Thank you very much. So let's start. First, I want to know what I'm dealing with. It's very important. I want to know who's really feeling down this morning, and it's okay. Raise your hands. It's lies. It's lies. Then why are you here for the free lunch? Come on. I saw the bags, not that good. It's okay not to be okay. So, I was wondering, Mr. DJ, I know I'm putting you on a lot of pressure, but is there any way that I can have some soft piano at the back? Either you play it, there's a piano standing there, or you can just gooi it. So my name is Melissa de Aveiro, born Erasmus. Got married and divorced. And I grew up in a little town with the name of Vredendal. Now, Vredendal is a very small town in the West Coast. We grew up on snoek and patat, as you can see, a lot of butter. And we were still children. So my mother had me at a very early age of 16 years old. And my father at that time, it sounds like you can actually exchange them, but my father at that time, meaning my biological father, I didn't know him, and I didn't know that he existed. And is it possible that I can come down a bit, Nick? I don't the podium is for my stress. And my life started. My mother was very young, and I was raised amongst a lot of people. Because remember, when your mom is 16, there's not a lot of options out there. I know there's a lot of women that became mothers at a very early stage in your life. Because stuff happens. Okay? No judgment. And I was raised by family members. The first child. Oh, look at that, what I've done. And my mom is a queen. Love of my life, because she pushed through, but unfortunately she got busy young, and my mother's sister got hold of me, and she kind of raised me, but she also sexually molested me with her boyfriend badly. I'm not talking about playing on the front stoop. I'm talking about really hurting me sexually. And it became okay at a very early stage. Mom didn't know. I didn't talk to Mom about it because it was okay. It's weird how people, when they sexually abuse you, make you think it's okay. It's a secret. It's our little secret. And when you're so young, your body obviously reacts, right? I call a spade, okay? Because we live in a world that stuff is called what it is. So my body started reacting, obviously, to this. And I thought that was fine. That is love. When somebody touches you inappropriately like that, only learning that later, it's okay. So I grew up in a very liberal environment. Not telling my mother. It's a secret. So my mom didn't know. I only told her like way later in my life, like 19 or something. And I became carrying the shame of that secret. So it constantly feels that you have to hide something and lie. That's where lies are born, because you learn how to hide stuff. And I know there's women sitting here this morning that's got the same story that I have. And it's okay. And I grew up and I became an incredibly difficult teenager. I'm talking about Manson style. I was out of control. Started smoking at a very early age. Still smoke till today. The voice you just heard, sponsored by Peter Stuyvesant. Thank you, Peter. You can pay me the loyalties later. I sound like a man up until 11 o'clock. After that, it changes. Anyway, so I became incredibly difficult. I would set the sheets alight in the bed because it was fun. Venetian cotton. Mother wasn't impressed. I thought my name was, I can't swear now, but there's a lack of Afrikaans. I thought my name was a swear word because I constantly got like shouted at because I did these things for attention. Because remember, I've got something to say now. So I'm looking for attention. But all I'm getting is attention. So they're eating me. And then I started my school year. Kyk, ek het nou verkeerd gepraat. I talked wrong now. First we went to Vredendal. I started sub A there. And there I got difficult in the teenage years because now you're in a small town that when you dance on a table later, you are front page news on the local paper. And I liked the attention because somebody saw me. Because I was fat. Nobody wanted to be friends with me. I always lied. I used to steal my mother's jewelry and take it to my teacher as gifts. Then there's a teacher-parent meeting. Then my mother tunes, I've got earrings just like that. Just like that. I had it made. Yeah. Excuse me, mama. I used to do things for attention. And then I grew up. My mother married a good guy. My father that adopted me legally, because my biological father was arrested in the army those days. They went AWOL, and when they're not there, they get thrown into DB. And my mom couldn't wait for him. It's human, couldn't wait. So she moved on with her life, met a very wonderful guy. I've got a sister, 5 years younger than me, beautiful girl. And so my life started, and I started experiencing with, I know it sounds like a cliche, but drugs, alcohol, anything that can numb me, I started using it. And I started being very busy in my town. Busy meaning I was looking for love in all the wrong places. Doesn't matter what gender it was, doesn't matter what, I went for that. And I got a bad name. And my dad is actually evangelist type of preacher guy in the town. So the shame of this child that he adopted is people will say, hi, you know, Melissa's your daughter. He doesn't know if he must say yes or what did she do. I was that child. And it got rough for my family. And I went into a 9-year relationship with another woman that abused me for 9 years, and I stayed. 9 years. I stayed. She threw my guitar out. She stepped on my guitar. She broke, but I stayed. Because I stayed. Because I don't want to go home. And she abused me. And I abused her back. A handbag hits hard. But you become the town's laughing stock, the shame. My mother and father didn't want really anything to do with me. They always love you, but you mark them scum, eh? With stuff. Sometimes you really like, your mother goes like, wow, can't say that out loud. And after that, we broke up, me and this woman, and I thought, lekker, the best way to get over is to get under. So I'm going to Cape Town, baby. I told my mother I've got a job in Cape Town. Not true. So I packed a suitcase, 2 black bags and a brown bag, and I got onto a taxi to Cape Town. Got to Cape Town, found a friend while I'm there. Hi, I'm here. Can I live on your couch for a while? Because I've got stuff. He goes, sure. You know how it goes. You're young. That time I weighed 53. I've got photos to prove that. There was a time that I was thinner. I was very thin. And my mother thought I was starting a job, so I'm lying. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm here. I'm working for a lawyer. Can't even spell. I mean, really. Anyway, I'm ADHD, by the way, if that's even a thing. Went to Cape Town. We're jawling. We're just jawling. My heart's broken now. So I'm listening to, I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. I did it. Replay. I'm all out of love. My friend gets in my room and is like, oh, you need to get over this. We're going out. I'm like, lekker. And we dress up and we go out on Blouberg Strand. I don't know if you know Cape Town. Blouberg Beach Road. It's like a party strip. And we started. I only have 2 rand on my name, but I got so drunk. I went to McDonald's and I was persistent on a KFC wrap. Just humor, I'm not making it fun. And we danced in a club that one night. And I've got rhythm. Some people cannot even knock on a door. But I got rhythm. And I started dancing the one night. Then there was a pole. I didn't understand the poles. I thought maybe it's to keep the roof up or something. I don't know. And there was nobody dancing with me, so I just toyed with the pole. It's like, I like this. And I went to do my moves. And this chick comes to me and she goes like, "Oh, you can dance." I'm like, "Yeah." And she puts a business card in my hand. She says, "Phone me, I got a job for you." I'm like, "Lekker. But now your gums are like this." Lekker. Lekker. And you know when you're after the jewel you got, there's always a hot dog stand. Yo, kappa booty, my business card, now I'm going home. Lekker. 7 sets of footsteps, there we go. Next morning you wake up. You know what a hangover is? I'm sure all of you had one. It feels like you've been bombarded by 7 trains from all sides. And I'm still in my clothes, so I reach into my pocket and I get this business card and I'm like, "Foxy's Angels. This sounds right." So I phone the chick, I'm like, "Listen, you gave me a card last night." She goes like, "Yeah, I remember you." She says, "Come for audition." I'm like, "Okay." Now I'm showering, but when you're drunk and weird, you don't put new makeup, you just put on top of that. You gooi just 'n streep 'n bietjie op. And I was walking, I didn't have transport, so I was walking and she gave me the address and I'm asking around random people and I get to this house, a quite upmarket house in Blouberg, and I knock on the door and a man opens with just a jean, the door, and I'm Melissa, and he goes like, "Yeah," and he's got a cigarette hanging, but it also looks like he had a rough night. And he said, "I must just wait there by the thing. Foxy is just busy." I thought she was making coffee. She wasn't making coffee. She was shouting very loudly. And then another guy that also looked moeg came out. And I thought maybe he helped her with the coffee. I don't know. And I was scared and I was sitting there and I can't get out because they put the gate on. And Fox says, she's still like, "Welcome." I'm like, "Oh, rustig jy." And she goes like, "Yeah, I saw you dancing and would you like to dance for us?" And what. I'm like, "Dancing how?" She goes like, "No, exotic dancing." I say, "How exotic? Can I keep my bloomer on?" She goes like, "Yeah, you can just." I'm like, "Okay, where do I sign up?" "Okay, lekker, let's do this." First night we go out to Mavericks, Cape Town. Biggest stripping joint in Cape Town. Very upmarket, if it can be upmarket. It's upmarket. People with big, those fur coats, dollar bill. And they introduced me that night as Dawn, break of a new day, apparently. I broke something that night. And I came in and they played me a song, Rob Zombie, Living Dead Girl. I was dancing on that. And I came on stage and I was on the stage and I was dancing and there's people and they spray you with hose pipes from the bottom and I said harre and and the people are just putting the money. Ek is later so. Yes, netty, 50 rand. Yes, 100, 200. I'm coming. And you get the you see who's got money, so you dance here. Yay, there we go. And I finished that night and I count my money back and I've got 7,000 rand. I'm like, yo, and I didn't even take my broek out. Rustig. And I started working for Foxy. And we lived a very extravagant life. We worked at night, slept in the day. We drank champagne. We were always dressed well. The latest fashion perfumes, but drugs came, cocaine came. Because you can't be sober when there's a 92-year-old man requesting stuff from you. No offense with 92-year-old people. It's just, what are you doing there? And do you remember where you are and who you are and how you got here? This is not the library. And they just sit like this. But they got the dollar bill. So you are blind. And I started getting into that lifestyle. And I started using drugs severely. And this one friend of mine, Marley, stress. She is a stewardess on a jet for a sheikh. And she danced with me. And one night we were doing Cleopatra, Queen of the Desert. And I was the hostess at Kibana. And they paid us 5,000 rand each for that night. We were 3 girls. We would just stand there. It's like, hi, welcome, hi, welcome. And Marley always got missing. And she went to go and sit with a couple here at a table. And I tune her all the time, you must come work. She goes like, yeah, you got this. I'm like, yeah, but you're getting 5 grand for sitting there. And I must stand here and look like this, like a hot dog. Everybody wants one. And she's sitting with this couple, but it's a very well-dressed couple. It's a, what do you call that, Samoan woman? Beautiful girl. And this guy that looks like Richard Gere, really, really does. Not that I like Richard Gere, it's just like he looked like Richard Gere. And she called me, and this guy comes up to me, this Richard Gere oak, and he says to me, come and sit with us, have dinner. I'm like, okay, and I ask Marley, what's the deal? And she says, no, they want us to go to their penthouse. Now, and where I work, that means stuff's going to go down. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to snort lekker cocaine, and then I'm going to pass out, and then you can sort this out because I work more. And there was a driver, and we went to their penthouse in Ocean View, and we got there, but it's posh, eh? It's like they go into the lounge like this, then the curtains open. Then the one coughs, then the light goes on. Everything is sound activated. I passed some wind, and then the bed lampie started flickering. I was like, it was very stressful. And they started putting on this music, and the candles went on, and the lady started moving funny. She started walking like this and like getting up. I said, hey, rustig. I didn't sign up for this. And Marley got chatting with a guy, and they gave us a drink. I used to love whiskey a lot. And they gave us a drink, and I see Marley is so happy about this guy and what. And I always go to people's houses when I visit you for the first time to check what is in your bathroom cupboard. I do that. First time I went to Monica's house, I'm like, I'm just going to your bathroom cupboard. What's here? It's because of what happened there. I go to their bathroom, but during the course of the evening, somebody was making ice. The girl, the woman, but buckets of ice. But I was so drunk, and I didn't know what she was doing, but she was carrying buckets of ice. And I'm like, yo, does she have a bar downstairs or whatever? And I go to the bathroom, and I walk into the bathroom, and it's ice cold in the bathroom. And the whole tub is full of ice and water. And I open up the cupboard, and there's scalpels and needles and gloves. And I was like, what the? They're going to take my kidneys. And Marley's too drunk to know this. Now I'm like tripping. I'm like, wow. And I'm trying to get Marley's attention, because I eventually, I'm like checking this out. I saw a movie about this. And I'm like, work, cook. He said, no. And I try to get Marley, and I'm like, come here, they're going to do this. Like, how do you even know? I'm like, shh, we have to leave now. Somebody's going to phone you, we're going. Long story short, we struggled to get out there. She faked the phone call that his son was sick, and we broke out there, and we started running on the beach. And as we ran, I started crying, because my life was just safe. 2 days later, those people were in the Blouberg Post. The police were looking for them because they were harvesting kidneys. So it doesn't matter where you are, what you do, and what you believe in. Your higher power or God, whoever you believe in, somebody's checking out for you. That's when stuff got real for me in Cape Town. My mother and father said to me, come home. Now I must walk with this shame. The whole of Vredendal was there already paying me. They were paying. And now I must walk into this little town with the shame again. I walk in Spa, people go like, I'm like, what? So your husband paid me 200 rand, you know what I'm saying? I got like that, I got aggressive. I got ugly. I started You must understand, I'm getting from 40,000 rand a week plus minus. I have to work for a salary for 5 grand for my father in the irrigation business. So at least it's water. I don't know. And I stayed there for a long time and I worked for my mom, but the shame on my life. I lied all the time. I used to do horrible things to people. Nobody in my life. I didn't want even a dog. I didn't even want a plant. I didn't even want a budgie. But in my time in Cape Town, I used to sleep on the beach. I was homeless for a while. And I used to stay under a rock. And I used to eat out of bins, garbage bins. Debonair's food's all right. It stays 3 days. Panarottis you don't touch. The pasta's sour. You get sick. I used to eat. I had a mother to phone, but I refused. Because I was not going to make it. And I didn't. Then, so I lived on the beach. I was drug abused. And I had to do a lot of... Excuse me, I just need to explain to you the intenseness of this. Just want to be in time. Oh, it's still got a lot of time. One time I was not knowing where to go, and I had a bag. And my friend heard the story so many times. I just want to apologize for having to tell it again. There was a mall, and it was the only place where I could stay. So I had to do something for the guard in order to sleep in the bathroom of the mall. But I have to be out the next morning, 6 o'clock. Sexually, I had to sell my body to sleep in a mall that doesn't even belong to him. Degrade myself. And then I just went home. And I got there and stuff started getting better, but I still live with my mother. It's very difficult to live with your mother after you've been on your own. Because she likes the cups like this, and I like the cups like this. And it's moeilijk. I love the woman. Mom, if you're watching, I love you. She's watching. She's always watching. And long story short, in my life, I went back to the roots and I started braaiing and catering with friends again. And brandy was my thing. And whiskey was my thing. And I got a car. And we started driving around. And in Vredendal, when you stay there, you've got the following in your boot at all times. Wood, blitz, brandy, ice, and a grill. Because you never know where the braai will present itself. And possibly a sleepover. Because you won't be able to drive. Because that's what they do there. They braai and they braai. And then this one time, I've got very, very good friends down in the Northern Cape in Garies. And we had a little get-together there, and another friend of mine was there that I met. And she kept on telling me that weekend, we need to go because my nephew? My cousin, you see, they told me I must do this in English. Yo, stress. En ek praat so lekker Afrikaans. Verstaan jy? Maar ek moet nou dink aan Engels ook nou. Wag, I must think in English ook now. So she kept on going on about this guy we have to get on because the cousin is there. The cousin, but who's the cousin? She goes like, no, it's my cousin. He's from Pretoria. I'm like, okay, so why are we rushing for him? I mean, to me, it sounds like a little choker. Why we have to? No, we have to go. We drive all the way back to Vredendal. We get there, and it's a guy, like a big man, and that's my ex-husband, by the way. That also didn't work out. So now the rumor has gone that I've been swinging both ways. It's a thing apparently. I don't even know. And she introduced him to me, and I started. The one night we catered and we clicked, and he was a nice guy. He was like a tall guy. He was a nice guy, kind of good look. After a couple of brandies, everybody looks nice. You know, even the featherless budgie that was there started to look nice. I don't know, it was moeilijk. And we catered there, and he took a liking in me. And I told him straight, kykie, Anaspan. I don't like you. You've got stuff that I don't want. He says like, don't worry, I will make it right. I said, is it? Okay. And I started catering with this guy. And he flew back to Pretoria and he made me come to Pretoria, and we started becoming friends. And then there was a guest house, and we had a lot to drink. Again, alcohol, a lot to drink. And I woke up the next morning in the guest house, and I felt ashamed because I knew I was pregnant. I just knew. It was one of those nights. But I didn't say anything to him. And long story short, he's Portuguese, by the way. I just kept the surname because it sells very well. Melissa Erasmus, it sounds like a boere musiekplaat, you know. De Aveiro sounds like, yeah, you know. Welcome. Welcome. So what happened was, I skipped my monthly installment, and then I bought 5 tests. I just pointed it in the direction, and the thing got positive. I'm like, what? Why? So now I have to tell my mother, my father. I'm like, Dad, he says, you're pregnant. I'm like, yeah. He goes like, praise God. I'm like, why? He's like, nou kan jy rustig raak. Now you can calm down. I'm like, this is interfering with my life now. Very stressed. Now I found the oak and I said, listen boy, I'm pregnant. He goes like, is it mine? Oh, really? Yeah, it's yours. A girl like me, you had to ask that. Because if it comes out of ginger, yeah, it's just, I don't know. Spicy food, I don't know. So I felt pregnant and I thought, okay, maybe this is what I need to do. Maybe I must get the dog and the husband and the picket fence and the opgerolde housepipe and the whole garden thing and garden services and belong to Avon. Maybe I must go there. But I didn't love this guy. I couldn't love anyone. I couldn't love anything. I didn't know how. Because to me, love equals pokkel. That was my thing. Love equals that in my head. Because I was a whore. And now we have to get married. Ooh, stress. So much happening. My mother's excited. Oh, she's got the whole town in havoc. She's got a wine estate. It seems like she's been thinking about this for 5 years or something. Because she got the whole file. Look, I got you this. And look. I walk into the bridal shop, like, take that dress. My mom says, don't you want to fit? I said, take that dress. I'll wear that one. And my mother's dream of my wedding happened. Fort Fair Lane was one of my cars that I arrived in. The husband. I've got family that I didn't even know. The whole ceremony. And when I got out of the car to walk with my father, I said to him, Daddy, I can't. And I just remember there was like guests. The wedding was kind of expensive. You know that look? Dis dier. Ek kan later dit uitsort. Ek kan nou die mense uitstuur nie. Let's do that. And I'm standing in front of that altar and I've got this picture in my head about a marriage and you're supposed to feel like music. There's niks music nie. I was just like, my feet are hurting. I'm 4 months pregnant. Everybody knows I'm pregnant. Somebody had to impregnate me to have me. It's bad. But I knew I was expecting a son. Something that couldn't leave me. I made someone, and I had plans to take the child and go. He was just a donor. I was going. Big wedding. He went back to Pretoria. I stayed with my mother, mommy's little girl, because I first need to sort myself out. He's putting up a house in Pretoria for us. I told him, Kykie, you see my mother's house, ne? It needs to be like this. I was horrible. And this poor oak ran around and he goes like, he sends me photos and I check the couches. I'm like, it's going to be a problem. Top billing. Not top billing, it's not working. I was full of hormones. I was born, what is onver genoeg in Engels? Wat sê jy? disgruntled. I was unhappy when the sun was not there but there. Spoiled. Because I always wanted attention. And this poor man is making my house neat for me. And I got to the house eventually. And I walked in and I checked. Ooh, he says to me, don't sit on that chair because that thing is broken. I'm like, lekker. There we go. The coffee table belonged to Tannie Tilly. This thing was, the TV is from Oom Dolphy. I'm like, hand me down me now. Lekker. The plates and stuff, I look like those plates that you buy at Pep stores that's been eaten out a lot. Met 'n baie krap merk op. That's not my plates. I'm like, oh, hier gaat ons sukkel. And I'm pregnant. And the relationship became very abusive because I was that word that she said. Nothing was good enough for me. I didn't talk to him. I didn't sleep with him. I didn't sleep next to him. And obviously he got frustrated with me. So it got a bit aggressive. And I was like, Amber, I abused. But I was also abused. And every time I tell the story, I tell people a joke about how I abused, but I'm growing. Because you get grace for the people that you abused in your life. It's not fun. I can belittle my aunt. It's on a link. But as you grow, you start to forgive. Nee. You don't belittle. And I got pregnant and my baby, there was something wrong with this baby. I knew it. At 8 months, 8.5 months. Because he abused me. That I'm going to tell you. That's why my child died. And the Thursday morning I was lying on my back and my heart was beating and I didn't feel anything here. And I was already far along. And I said to him, take me to a gynecologist. There's something wrong with this child. He goes like, no. I said, take me to a gynecologist. And we got to the gynecologist and he checked me out and I heard the heartbeat, but fast, like, just like that, faster than it used to. And he says, no, you're fine. Your baby is just, there's a little bit of water on the kidneys. I'm like, but that's not right. He goes like, no, don't worry about it. You're almost due. Just keep it, take it easy. I'm like, no, he says, take it easy. I'm like, okay. And the next day, there was nothing happening in the stomach. And I said, I'm going to Cape Town. And he said, you can't fly. And I'm like, I'm going. So I took cash and I bribed myself through the airport. Booked my ticket. I'm saying to my mother, I'm coming home. My mother's like, yeah, but your husband needs to be with you. I'm like, no, I'm coming. And I remember I was big. But me and my boy, he said I play guitar. So I used to sit and romance for hours. How I was going to walk with him on the beach. And how I was going to tell him about life. And how I was going to tell him about loving. And how I was going to let him teach me. Because I made this little person that would love me for the rest of my life. It was right. And I get to Cape Town and my mother make an appointment at our house doctor. In Vredendal, you still got a house doctor that knows you from sub A to matric. You can't even secretly do an abortion in town because she knows. It's like you can't do that. And it's been 11 years now. And everything has been taken from me. And I walk into Dr. Marie van Niekerk's office and she gives me one look. And she goes like, oh, you look so beautiful. I was very pretty, pregnant. My nails were, my hair was pretty. And she said to me, lie down, let us see. And I think the loudest noise was the silence of the monitor that day. There was no heartbeat. He died. Michael Daniel de Aveiro died. And now I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is this happening to me? After everything that I've been through, you take my child. And now I have to walk with a dead child inside me. So all I wanted now is for it to get out. They tune me now, I can't have a Kaiser, I must go for normal birth. Great. And they go to Paul Mediclinic and they book me into the hospital and whatever, and it takes long, and my father first needs to pay because the husband must casino. As I'm sitting there, the SMSs go through at Monte Casino, gambling out the rent. And they call my mother. You see how the woman, the queen in my life, always shows up. Actually, she does show up. And she sits with me that whole night on a lazy boy, and I'm in so much pain, and they gave me 4 induction pills to enhance the birth. So I'm walking like this. Child's dead, but they medicated the out of me. I was going to the nurse's station, tuning them, lacquer jokes with the dead. I was like a crazy person. And I didn't want to go to the toilet because I'm scared my child was going to come. And I said, it's time. And they took me to the delivery. And I remember that day I was lying there, and it was so hard for me because I was still hoping that maybe he was just going to cry. Maybe something was just wrong that they didn't see his heartbeat, or something was, but I was so desperate for his voice. And the only thing that I told my mother is please, and I pushed, and they said he's actually so perfect, the doctor said. And that broke me even more. And I saw him, the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen, just not alive. And I remember I was thinking, please, Lord, somebody, anybody, just let him move. And I just remember telling them, don't put my child in a bin, please. They said, no. He goes, we're going to take care of his sister. And I can't describe to you the emptiness that I felt after that. And now I'm angry. Because who does this? And I want to tell you something. A woman that's lost a child through death is scared of nothing. Because they took my boy. Whoever took my boy. I was thinking about him with his hair like mine and walking on the beach with his jeans. And I was so in love with him, and I lost him. And at that point in my life, I've lost everything, trust me. And I don't want to see the husband. Hy moet gaan. Went through the whole procedure. He got cremated. And there was when I got back to Vredendal, the whole town that was talking about me was queuing at my house. And I went onto the stoep and I said, listen, get the away from me. You tore me apart. Take your flowers, take your cards, because you're only here for the sensation story. Laat jy gaan. Because now, she got pregnant, now a child died. Hierdie vrou, you know how people get in a small town. And I stayed with my mother for a while, and we had a memorial. My mother and father wasn't there. I don't understand why. And it was the 15th of December. It was close to Christmas, and then my sister found out she was pregnant. And I felt that it was like not fair. And they were all, you know how they walk on eggs around you? And it was just the rubbish. I started drinking severely. It's very hard. Went back to Pretoria. First I went to bury my son. Very dramatic. I went back to Blouberg. And I took his ashes and I walked into the ocean. And I wanted to keep a little bit in a vial around my neck. I am like that, I'm an artist. And the moment I had that ashes go, and I was like, well, I forgot. And I couldn't take it back. But I remember where I put it. And long story short, went back to Pretoria, and then it just went bad. I went back to my house, and my baby room was there. And everything was there, and there's an empty cot. It's painful. I didn't want anything to do with him, so I made it extra difficult for him. Extra difficult. And I was drinking, I bought a box of Russian Bear vodka every week. I almost got up with a Russian accent sometimes. Svetlana Istrobokia. And long story short, I just want to watch the time, and I started drinking severely, and he couldn't. I phoned my mother, I'm like, I don't want to be here. My mother says, you're not coming back. I'm like, okay, so I'll just drink. Make it work, goes to marriage counselor. I'm not counseling nothing. He can be glad, he must sleep with his one eye open. Rustig. And then he booked me, he's Catholic. He books me on a Christian camp. In our house was when I arrived there, I forgot, this is quite humorous. There was a baptism cloak for a baby in a box. And that is just my beliefs. I've got nothing against anything. But his great-grandmother from 1811 wore that thing. It's not even white anymore, it's yellow. Now I want to tune me, my son must get baptized in Daidang. I said he will pick up something, point number one. Point number two, I'm not Catholic, no offense. I'm not going to raise him the Catholic way. So I took that about 48,000 rand piece of thing and I hit it and I burned it. I was in big trouble. It was a family heirloom. I destroyed it. It's pretty bad. And they booked me on this Christian camp and I'm really drunk this Friday. I'm really drunk. And I got a notification on my phone, I must go to this Christian camp. It's free. Meals, you must just bring your clothes and stuff. So I got in my car and I drove. I actually freed because I couldn't drive. I was drunk. I packed my Weber, my braai, my Vredendal stuff in my car. Now I'm going to this Christian camp. And I'm driving there. And it's in the bush. It's deep in the bush. And I thought, ooh, this is it's deep in the bush. They're going to execute us. Yes. Maybe he's going to get rid of me. The mafia, they're going to burn me in the bush. And I was so drunk, I stopped outside and there were lions made out of rock. But I only saw that later and I'm like, come here. And I'm like, oh, but even the lions are nice here. Only to realize later it was actually rocks. I had a lot to drink. And I got to this camp and I stopped eventually and I just see all these women, 500 women plus standing there. But they working, skuif trek. Some's got fishnet on. I'm like, lekker. I call him, I'm like, what camp is this? Is it a kerkkamp? He goes like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'll be here. And I sit in the car and hear me like this. And I say, okay, God, I'm here now. So if I need to be here, please send somebody to come and carry my stuff. For me, it will be my sign. I got like that. Regtig. So we sent two people with very little clothes that introduced themselves as hookers. And they carried my stuff to the room and I started my fire and I was burning the fire and I was throwing the vodka and the people were standing there and the owner of the camp comes from the front and he goes like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, lekker. And I'm like this. And he's like, welcome, like lekker. And that weekend changed my life. I didn't talk about my son once. I said to my Savior, I need somebody, I know how these camps work, I need somebody to come and tell me that doesn't know me why my son died, but I'm not going to ask anyone. You know how it works. And the whole camp went and I left the booze, because I thought sober, I need to do this. And the Sunday morning, a lady came there to sing. And she started singing. And I was sitting at the back because I didn't want to be seen with camo clothes. I thought, I know if you wear yellow, they always call you out. I know. I was raised in the church. They always call the yellow out. Yeah. Never wear yellow to church if you want to keep a low profile. And she goes like, and she started singing. And she stopped. She said, something weird happened now. And she said, I just heard the Lord telling me that there's a woman sitting here that lost a child before childbirth. You must get up. Ek dink, lekker. There's 15 people getting up. I'm like, long shot. Sorry. It's not specific enough. Arrogant. And she says, wait. And she calls my child on its name. And I get up and I walk to the front. And I just collapsed. And she said to me, you know what, Melissa, you always ask what love was. Just think about your son giving his life for you to be here is the ultimate love sacrifice. And I started thinking about it like that. And that morning I wept so much, I don't think I had any liquid in my eyes left. And I thought through the drugs and the stripping and the prostituting and everything that I've done, my child is dead and this woman tunes me this now. Now I still got the husband. I'm like, so what do you see for the husband, Kimmy? Tell him. He go or what? Or stay? Must I move? Thank you for that message, but I just want to know about the husband. Okay. So I drive home and I tell him, listen, we can stay together for a while, but I can't loop. I'm going. We're done. And it got a bit abusive, and at the end of the day, I think we got divorced. I signed the paper, I never see him again. And he took his stuff, he left me with 2 plates, a set of cutlery, 2 cups, and a kettle. Lekker. Abandonment. Lekker. So he went. Then I met someone else very quickly. Can't be alone. It's horrible. At the women's camp. And we were housemates and we lived together for about 8 years. And I worked and my life started getting back to place. I got a car. I got a good job. I started working for this company for 5 years. I was really a good worker. My life I thought, oh, lekker, I've got money. I can buy inchies. I'm fine. Because normally I used to smoke the inchies there on the floor. But now with Corona, you can't. Jy sal siek raak. And I started working for this company and it goes well and he trusts me with so much responsibility. I started to work for 3,000 Rand a month. When I started, I think I worked there 4 months. My salary was put up to 8. And then it was up to, my promotions were like 15, 25. And for somebody that ate out of a bin, that's a very big thing. But don't be misled when it goes well with you and think it's a good thing. Because there's a sadist vibe ruling this world that will lure you into something that makes it look so provocative and so nice, and you think, yes, this is my breakthrough. And you're busy with nonsense, but I didn't know. So I worked for this guy for 5 years. He earned my trust. Everything was fine. He sends me, one morning he sends me to go collect a document. We worked in transport. There was 2 of our tankers that was impounded by impound. And I have to go pick up a document to get the trucks released. And I went to pick up the document and I got there and it was a police sting operation. And they arrested me. And I was like, but I only picked up the document. And I phoned my boss and his phone is off. I'm like, what? And they put me on a bonnet. And why are you taking a photo? Who's this guy? Are you allowed to? Are you married? I don't want trouble. Yeah?
I'm from the Department of Communications and Marketing. So I'll be writing an article for our internal platforms.
Thank you very much. I just got some trust issues. But thank you, brother. It's funny. But anyway, long story short, where was I now? I'm struggling. I got arrested. How can I forget that? They threw me on the bonnet of my car. Arrested nogals. Once. I don't know what to do. They take my car to the impound. They treat me like horrible. They throw me the policeman. I'm like, what is happening? No, it's a fraudulent document. We've been watching you for 5 years. I'm like, yo, and you only get here now. Ek weet eers dat aangaan nie. And they throw me in jail for 2 weeks in Sun City. Somebody framed me at my company. I figured it out in jail. I get a lawyer. I'm like, I don't even have a parking ticket. I was a stripper, but I never got a parking ticket. Because I didn't have a car, because my car went up my nose. And I'm sitting in jail for 2 weeks waiting for the court. Every day I got a court. Here they tune me now, I can get out on 50,000 rand bail. This was me and 3 other guys. I'm like, I don't even know where am I going to get 50K? And I went on my knees in the jail cell. I don't look good in orange. It says remanded. And I say, okay, well, there's a parable somewhere in a book written saying when you're in jail, the shackles will fall off. So what do? You pray to whoever you believe in, whatever you believe in. You pray to sugar if you have to. You pray. Look, I don't belong here. And the next day I got out on bail. They got the 50K. I don't know how. Now I have to go to court. You know how it goes. Go to court, go to court, go to court, go to court. They tune me. Okay, if you don't sue us for wrongful arrest, we will drop the case. I'm like, okay, just do whatever. 11 months of my life destroyed. No job, no food, back in the dumps. No money, hungry, no petrol. My car's in the impound. I must go. It's horrible. My father and mother don't think that I'm not guilty. Obviously not. And one night, they took away my smokes. The government. And I thought it's enough. I lost a child, but nobody took my Angies. Only one very brave woman in South Africa did that. I thought, do you know what I've lost, Mrs.? And I make a video about this on the internet. I took a Vodacom Advance. And I post the video. The next morning, 65,000 views on this video. People phoning me. Kykie, you need to do something about this. This video is viral. We have to do this. I opened up a Facebook page. I started up with a broom. See-through duct tape around my phone to keep it just a, what do you call it, tripod? Bed lamp and a guitar. And I started motivating people out of a dark place on the internet every morning, 9 o'clock. And people started paying me. They said, give us your bank details. We want to pay you. I'm like, lekker. Singers request. Lekker. Yes. My page grew. 200 to 5,000 to 9,000. I started motivating people. People said they were going to listen to your story. My life changed 180 degrees. Now you think, yes, it's going to go well. And somewhere in February, because I literally sing for petrol, bread and milk. And it's okay, and Angies that I got from a bush, but it's a long story. They turned us into criminals, all of us. I was in the bush. And I started getting depressed again because now we're in lockdown. I've got a house as big. I think my house was as big as this, my whole house. The bathroom doesn't have a division. My housemate had a very rough time because his stomach is rough. There's no closing part. And I had my first gig. Lockdown was just open for entertainment. And I couldn't deal with I couldn't deal with this. It's easy behind like this, né? But ewe skielik to see people again, it's almost like, it's weird. And my friend sitting here, Monica Dale, immaculate way how we met, in my sadness, where I started to encouraging people. She was at a low point in her life. We didn't know each other. She was ironing. Her mother passed away about 2 years ago, or a year ago. 2 years ago. And she was ironing, feeling low, and she put me on the internet. She didn't know me, and she was ironing, and she was listening to me talking. Can I swear one word? Not. Where's the camera? Stop marinating in your shit. Bollikies. It's not a way. That was my message. And she needed to hear that. And she goes into my Facebook page and she starts scrolling. She says, but this woman is Mala. She does everything here. And I'm going to tell them about this contribution that you made to me, because I think you changed my life. And I'm sitting there and I don't know if I have to buy milk, inches, bread, inches. What must I buy? I don't have money. And I say, please, I can't pay the rent this month. And she pays money into my account without me knowing. She's speaking to my person that was working with me at that time on the page. And I got an amount of 6,000 Rand in my bank account. And I'm crying and I said to my friend, well, who paid this money? Because I asked. And she tunes me as this lady. But she doesn't want me to actually, I'm phoning her. We're talking now. Me not knowing that she saw my video. But her words to me was because there was another guy that promised me to help me for 3 months, and he pulled out on 99. And her words to me was, Melissa, I don't know you, but somebody promised you something and they didn't come to the party. Without her knowing. And I phoned her and we became friends. And she started changing my life because you know what? She stopped. She stopped at me. But before that, I was sitting behind a gun again. The struggle doesn't stop, guys. I wanted to pull the trigger and there was something that malfunctioned because I had to perform the next day. I couldn't. And it's a daily struggle. And I went and I did my performance and stuff changed. And Monica said to me, no man, you can't stay here any longer. Come. So kind. Took me in. Gave me a dressing table that I never had. A cupboard for my clothes that I never had. And today, my music video launched 2 days ago. Because compassion healed me. And I'm still going through struggles. I was actually crying yesterday about my biological father. When I'm standing here talking to you, it doesn't mean the struggle is over. It just becomes easier. Rising from the ashes. Rising from the ashes. You cannot give up. You cannot, doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You are good enough. You must exist. Nobody can tell you that you're not good enough. If you failed your child is constantly saying, when are we having dinner? What's it? Don't cook. Your worth cannot be determined by somebody else's need. Because you are an individual. You're a woman. And I want to talk to the men as well. Guys, we understand that you are the breadwinner in the house. We understand that you get seduced very easily. It's okay. We understand that there's pressure on you after COVID-19 that changed your life as a man, that changed your ego, that changed the way you see stuff, that took your authority away. It's okay. You didn't fail, boy. You're still a king. Put a woman in a confined space for 5 months. Are you mad? Any man would leave. I've heard it. We can scowl. When are you going to cut the grass? Why must I cut the grass now? I haven't bothered to cut the grass. No woman is a servant to a partner. It's a contribution to a relationship. And I've been through hell and back. There's a book to prove it. I'm going to give a couple of copies of my book away this morning. I bought too little, but it's fine. We can take some. You can change your life. You can change your direction. Now I want to ask you to participate in something this morning. There's a song I want to play, and I want you to get up on your feet. Who got something out of this story this morning? Like seriously now. Okay. I'm unstoppable. Shout it out. I'm not hearing you. Yes. You can do this. Yes. I'm unstoppable today. Unstoppable. I'm invincible. Unstoppable today.
Dankie sê nou, dan gaan ons jou versoeke doen.
You don't know how strong you are. There we go. We've got somebody on the chair. Let's do this. Drakom. Drakom. Yes. Yes. There we go. Stick out. Stick out, Masakan. Yes. Yes. Go. Go. You can do this. You can do this. You are good enough. You are good enough. Let's do this. Unstoppable. Yes. You are unstoppable. You are invincible. Woo, I love the vibe. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Zeg achter mij, just say after me. I am enough. I believe that I'm enough. I will never back down. My future is prosperous. Amazing. I love me. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you that we know that we are unstoppable. So, and just believe that and do it, and we can change the university, us that are here, because we can give this message. We are unstoppable. Nothing can leave us down and out, and that we don't believe in ourselves, because whoever it is, you have a higher being. For me as a Christian is that whoever you pray to, you will get better. You are unstoppable. But I think, Melissa, you know, it was Susan's one night working late as always. She surfaced the internet. And who popped out? Melissa. So thank you for working so late, Susan. This time we really, so thank you for your time and your initiative, and that you really make it possible for us to do this.